The containment bay doors hissed open with a sound like the end of the world. Every sensor in Xenological Research Station Vega 9 screamed at once. Red lights strobed across the curved walls of the Alien Academy's lower district. Scientists scrambled behind reinforced glass. Armed escorts pressed themselves flat against the corridor walls, weapons trembling in their grip. Because Kale Vera was free. 600 kilograms of apex predator from the deep gravity world of Thorn. 7 feet of layered muscle beneath armored hide that could deflect plasma rounds. 4 retractable talons on each hand, each one capable of splitting durasteel plating like wet paper. Eyes like molten copper, pupils narrowed to razor slits, scanning every exit, every threat, every weakness in the room with the cold efficiency of a creature that had never, not once in 3,000 years of its species' evolutionary history, been the hunted. The restraint collar around its throat had malfunctioned during the routine transfer. A clerical error. A technician's distraction. A single mistyped override code. And now Kale Vera stood in the open corridor of the Interspecies Educational Academy of New Cressida, free, unrestrained, and furious. Station Commander Orvith, a Pulhari with 6 arms and no spine for confrontation, whispered into his comm link from 3 floors up, "Someone find the human. Find Ellison. Now." Mara Ellison was elbow-deep in craft supply bins when her comm badge chirped. "Ellison, we have a situation." "Hold on," she said, tongue between her teeth, fishing a dried glitter paste stick from between 2 foam sheets. "Found it." "Okay, go. The Thorn subject has escaped containment. Kale Vera is loose in the..." "Which corridor?" "Sub-level 4, junction 9, but Ellison, you cannot." She was already moving. Mara Ellison was 31 years old. 5'4". 138 pounds after a big lunch. Her official title was Xenopedagogical Integration Specialist, which was a very long way of saying she was the human who taught alien children how to read, paint, count, and share. She had no weapons. She had no armor. She had a canvas tote bag containing finger paints, foam letter blocks, 3 juice pouches, one of which had already leaked, and the rescued glitter paste stick. She had also spent the last 7 months as the sole caretaker of Kale Vera's cubs. The 2 young Thorn were called Joe and Me, shortened from sounds no human larynx could properly form, but Mara had tried for weeks until Joe had patted her on the head with one enormous paw and made a sound she'd come to recognize as "It's okay. We think it's cute when you try." Joe was the older one. Almost 4 years by Thorn reckoning. Big enough to knock a grown man off his feet when excited, which he frequently was. He had his father's copper eyes and his mother's. Well, Mara didn't know what his mother had been like. The file had said deceased, homeworld conflict. She hadn't pushed. Me was smaller. Quieter. She collected things, buttons, pebbles, broken circuit parts, and arranged them in patterns that Mara had started to suspect were either art or mathematics or both. She didn't speak much, but she watched everything. Both of them, on this particular morning, had covered themselves in blue finger paint and were sitting in the middle of the playroom floor waiting for Mara to come back. They heard their father before Mara did. Every young creature in the galaxy knows the sound of its parent. It doesn't matter what planet. It doesn't matter what species. There is some frequency, some particular resonance, that bypasses language and goes straight to the oldest part of the brain and says, "That is mine." Joe's head snapped up. His ears of broad flat, capable of detecting frequencies that would make a human's skull ring, swiveled toward the door. Me went very still. And then, from somewhere down the corridor, came a sound like a storm breaking. Kale Vera had torn through 2 security doors. Not because the doors were particularly in its way, but because they had been in its way, and Kale Vera had not been free in 412 days, and there was a pressure building behind its sternum that it recognized as something older than rage, something it had no word for, because it was not an emotion that required language. It was the need to find what was his. The academy staff had run. Smart. The armed escorts had retreated to defensive positions. Smarter. Kale Vera had noted them all and catalogued them as non-threats, because none of them stood between it and the scent it was following, a scent that had been embedded in every surface of its containment cell, carried in on small footprints and tiny clawed hands, and the lingering ghost of something sweet that it had eventually identified as a juice pouch. The scent of Joe. The scent of me. Alive. Close. Here. It rounded the corner of Junction 9 and stopped. Mara rounded the corner from the other direction at approximately the same moment. She saw Kale Vera. 600 kilograms of armored apex predator, talons extended, copper eyes blazing, chest heaving with something that was not quite breath and not quite growl, some deep, subsonic vibration that she could feel in her back teeth. Kale Vera saw Mara. And then they both saw Joe and me. The two cubs had apparently heard everything, because they had opened the playroom door themselves and walked directly into the corridor. Joe was in front, which was very Joe, chin up, chest out, covered in blue paint, looking for all the world like he owned every square inch of this station. Me was just behind him. She was holding something. Mara squinted. A glitter paste stick. A different one. She must have had it in her pocket. Joe looked at his father. His father, this enormous, terrifying, station-destroying creature that had security forces trembling 3 floors up, looked back at his son. And Kale Vera went completely, utterly, profoundly still. Mara had spent 7 months studying Thorn behavioral documentation. She knew the stillness. It was not the stillness of a predator preparing to strike. It was the stillness of a creature that had just experienced something it had no framework to process. The word in the files was Kethvor. The closest human translation was the moment the world reorganizes itself. Kale Vera's gaze moved from its cubs, alive, healthy, blue for some reason, to the small human woman standing between them and behind them and apparently also in the process of stepping toward them with the relaxed confidence of someone who had done exactly this every day for 7 months. Because Mara walked forward. She walked directly toward Kale Vera, stopped 6 feet away, and looked up, a long, long way up, and said, in the flat, matter-of-fact tone of someone discussing weather. They're okay. They've been okay the whole time. Joe learned to count to 40 last week. Me mapped the station's entire ventilation system in pebbles. I don't know why. I chose not to ask. Kale Vera stared at her. I know you can't understand me, Mara continued. The translator matrix doesn't work well with Thorn vocal ranges, the techs have been apologizing about it for months. But I want you to know, she held up her hands, slowly, palms open, fingers spread. Nobody hurt them. Nobody was going to. This isn't that kind of place. A sound came from behind her. She glanced back. Me had walked up and taken hold of 2 of Mara's fingers. Just standing there, holding on, looking at her father with her calm, cataloging gaze. Joe had done something more Joe. He had walked directly to his father's foot, one enormous, taloned foot that could have crushed him like a paper cup, and sat down on it. Just sat down. Claiming it. Like, this belongs to me, I was using it, I've been saving it. Kale Vera looked down at its son. Then it looked at the small human female who was standing between itself and everything it had come here to reclaim, with its daughter holding 2 of her fingers, completely unafraid. And something in its chest, in that wordless, pre-language place where the need to find what was his had been living for 412 days, did something it had not done in a very long time. It quieted. The security team found them 11 minutes later. Commander Orvith stared through the observation glass at the scene in Junction 9, 1 apex predator, 2 paint-covered cubs, and 1 human specialist sitting cross-legged on the floor, apparently in the middle of teaching a 600-kilogram Thorn the correct way to hold a glitter paste stick. Kale Vera was holding it wrong. But it was trying. Orvith pressed his calm stand down. Sir, the containment protocols? I said, stand down. He watched me arrange a small pile of pebbles near her father's knee. Watched Joe fall asleep on that enormous foot with the absolute confidence of a creature that had never once doubted it was safe. Watched Mara Ellison explain something with her hands while Kale Vera tracked every movement of her fingers with the focused attention of a student who understood that this was the one teacher whose class it could not afford to fail. She has it handled, Orvith said quietly. He was right. Humanity always did.